strategic move that Eddie is making for AJ. Why are you not thinking, let's get him set up for kind of animal?
If that was years and years and years ago. Like, Clarissa is a way different fighter from when she was back in.
Thanks to those joining me live and to those that will be joining me on our
defenses that she's had to have recently. You know, she's pulled people.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the RoundTable about tribalism. I don't think tribalism is necessarily bad. I just don't think it has to be.
I don't know what he think he sees or what he think he know. But he going to the hospital, bro. Like, bro, you not winning that fight.
You guys mentioned, I think, D-Style, you mentioned him versus Regis program. I'd love, that sounds like a...
I don't need you, you know, and PBC and others, in my opinion, it's like, oh, this is my guy. Like, there's a relationship.
Flat out, it's tough, and we call box, and we go to the end of the round, and then...
That would say, what do you mean by acting black? That's a fair question, but a participant of trash talk knows...
And they're announcing a fight 3-4 months from now. And he ain't going to fight. I bet you anything. He's not going to fight somebody as good as John Ryder. And thanks to those showing us live. Those will be on the archive as well. Make sure you hit the like button if you're listening on the archive. And for those listening live as well, we got a great show for you. This is the 184th edition of the RoundTable. We have the one and only Joe Beebe from Ringside Reporter here on this channel. All right. Check out, we got Gail here from nyfights.com. Make sure you check out her work at the website. Danny Glover, at FightFan TV. Follow him on Instagram. I know that's his handle there, and I believe that's his handle on Twitter. You could give it if you want. So I'm not sure what his handle is on Twitter, actually.
It's Danny the Lover Glover. That's his handle on Twitter.
Is that really all right? Well, there you go. Well, don't look that up on Twitter. Not on X. You're gonna see some things. I don't care what Musk says. It's not true. It's not safe for kids. All right. And of course, Cali X Boxing, the other half of ATP. How's it going, brother? And he's got the that says boxing in Japanese letters. You know what
Allegedly, that's what it says. I got it from Mr. Boxing Guru, so it could say anything. He's telling me it says boxing.
I'm a punk.
Someone needs to tell us. We got smart viewers. Come on,
That's right.
It says bonsai. It says bonsai.
Bonsai. And we got Lyndon from Boxing Deep Dive here as well. All right, so we got people from all over the world here. You know what I mean? Look, I know everybody wants to talk about the big showdown that we saw, and we're going to get there, but first is first. I mean, there's been this big anticipated, because everybody's talking about the rematch with Fury and Usyk, but speaking of rematches, speaking of fights that everyone's clamoring to see, right? Fights that everybody wants to see these fights. Ladies and gentlemen, the rematch. Taylor versus Catterall will be fighting over there in the UK in their much anticipated rematch. The boxing gods sent every message to them, right? They try to, like, injuries and postponements. They try to tell them nobody wants to see this rematch, but they insisted. And here we are. In fairness, many feel Catterall won the first fight. I mean, he does technically deserve a rematch here, and a win here could take him places. So, Joe Beebe, Taylor versus Catterall. How excited are you? Excited for this fight? And who do you think is going to win this rematch?
I'm not incredibly excited about it, but I don't dislike the fight. I think, again, I always say this, when you have guys who are on the same level, I think Josh Taylor and Jack Catteral are on the same level. I thought that fight was razor close. I did have Catterall winning it, but I thought it was a close fight. I only had him winning by a point last time, so it was a close competitive fight. I thought it was pretty entertaining. I thought Josh Taylor came on the stretch a little bit. So I think if Catterall boxes smart in this fight, uses his distance, his range, and doesn't allow Taylor to rough him up like he did in the first fight, doesn't allow Taylor to get on the inside, I think he should win on points. I don't think this fight ends in a stoppage. I do think Josh Taylor probably has lost a step, and I think that's going to play into a factor in this fight as well. But I do think it'll be a decent fight. It's obviously not a fight that we need to see, that the world is clamoring for. But again, I don't think it'll be a bad fight, and I will watch it, and I'm sure I'll enjoy it.
All right. Gail, how do you feel about this fight? And who, if any, do you feel needs to make the adjustments here?
It's going to be kind of the only game in town this weekend as far as boxing action goes. So, hey, if I can't have a cookie, I'll eat a cracker. That's okay. I think that time has not been on Taylor's side. And if we all believe on this panel, or most believe that Catterall should have gotten the nod the first time, he'll get his revenge the second time. Father Time is going to be helping him out a little bit. And we have to remember that, American fans are not the center of the boxing universe all the time. So this is a great grudge match fight for fans in the UK. They can pick up sides. It's a perfectly good fight. And for those of you that aren't interested, I'm sure there's plenty of chores around the house that need doing. So go for it.
Well, there you go. Danny, talk to us. You're over there in the UK. How big is this fight over there?
This is the forgotten fight because everyone is still on a hangover and drunk off of last weekend. Plus, the Premiership has just finished on football, aka soccer. So Manchester City has won, so everyone's talking about that as well. So this fight, no one's even talking about it. It's actually, hopefully, because it's Monday, hopefully by Tuesday, Wednesday, people start doing something. Maybe Josh Taylor and that got to start pushing and shoving each other to get everyone, talking about, oh, guess what? And some breaking news for some of these media outlets to talk about. But right now, it's very dead quiet right now. But regarding the fight, I didn't see it as that close. Yes, Catterall did let Josh Taylor back into the fight towards the back end, but during the early rounds, Catterall was pinging him off. He managed to drop him in the middle rounds. Josh Taylor even got a point off as well. So I didn't see it as close. I thought Catterall won it quite convincingly. I see Catterall winning again on point. Well, not again, winning, getting the result this time on points, because I do feel Josh Taylor has lost a step. I do agree with you there, Joe. In the Teofimo fight, you can see it's just, he's gone through that whole super series where he was going through the real ringer of fighters. And that was like probably his prime, where he was really, on top form and really on fire there. And that's when he was in the pound for pound rankings conversation and things like that. So, every dog has their day. And I think Josh Taylor's day has kind of passed him now. So I feel that Catterall's going to get the decision. But right now, as far as publicity-wise, no one's even talking about it, unfortunately, because, yeah, it's all been big stuff over here with other news.
All right. Calix, I know it's weird asking who needs to make the adjustment because, Taylor technically won the fight, right? But most don't feel he won the fight. So who do you think needs to make an adjustment, if any, in this fight? And are you looking forward to this fight?
I like most people had Catterall winning the fight. I believe I had him winning by 3 points. I don't exactly remember though, but
just go back and watch it and really analyze it a couple of times.
Yeah, never again. He really yucked that fight up. That was really a frustrating watch. I'm actually surprised that Taylor's sticking around at 140. He mentioned being drained for the Teofimo fight. He really did look sluggish in that fight. He's 33 years old, and things are really opening up at 147. If you notice, the landscape's opening up, and it's looking more favorable there. Whereas at 140, you have a lot of talent moving in the division. It's a tough division. So I'm surprised he's sticking around at 140. He's only fought once in the past 25 months, once since that fight. So, man, it's Jack Catteral is the minus 128 favorite. So it's basically a toss up. I don't have a good feel for it, to be honest. My instincts tell me Josh Taylor makes some slight adjustments. He's the better athlete and he'll edge out the fight. But I don't know. I don't have a good feel for that. So I'm going to just put a little money on Josh Taylor decision plus 210. That's what I'm going to do. But I don't have a good feel for it, to be honest.
Okay. All right. Lyndon, is this a fight you're looking forward to?
Well, it has been the forgotten fight, hasn't it? We've just been spoiled in the last month or two with the big fights we've had all over the world. So, look, I agree that Catterall won the first fight. And I think Calix just said Josh Taylor's been very inactive, hasn't fought for almost a year since the Lopez fight. And before that, I think it was even longer. So 33 years of age, struggling to make the weight. Catterall will be obviously up for the fight. So I think he'll right the wrongs in his mind from the last fight. And I think he will beat Josh Taylor this time. And whether that's the end for Josh Taylor or whether he goes up to 147, I suppose we'll see. But I think Catterall gets his revenge this week. But got to say, it's not like I'm counting the days, but if it's on, of course, we'll watch it. And I'm sure it'll be another good fight.
Yeah, I do. Maybe Catterall will have a different game plan because he wants to get the decision. Maybe he'll be more aggressive and offensive minded in the fight. But is that going to work though? Like, can that backfire? And then Taylor
his game plan was good to win the fight, but the problem is we're going. Yeah, what's that?
But he didn't get the nod, so is he going to do that?
Yeah, but I think it's okay. The issue is we're going to a place, and I think it's a good place in boxing right now, to where you're having some guys lose fights, and still they're getting they're getting dates right after. The promoters are rewarding fighters who are entertaining, even in losses, and fighters who are winning and not entertaining. Like, look at how people view Shakur right now. You have to entertain. So Jack Catteral can't just go in there and stink it up and expect people to look forward to him fighting. I think you're going to have to do more than what he showed for people to be interested than what he did 25 months ago. Even us, like, nobody, even with him winning that fight, nobody was really fighting for him online because he stunk up the fight so bad.
Yeah, I fought for him. I fought for you, Catterall. I'm just putting that out there, right? But look, let's get, look, there's so much to talk about in this weekend. So I'm just going to start off with the overall, like, I don't know who was keeping track of the betting odds, but there was so many upsets yesterday. I'm sorry, on Saturday. There was upset after upset. And just parlay after parlay just getting shredded. It was a horrible day for anyone who's betting, unless you're the type that loves to bet on underdogs. There was one fight, Norman Jr., Santillan. I couldn't believe that he was a 4-1 underdog against Santillan. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a steal. I wasn't sure he was going to win, but I felt it was a 50-50 fight. I put money on it. It's the only upset, like big upset I really saw happening, to be honest with you. And I was wrong. There's a lot of them. But because I wanted to bet, I'm going to say that was the upset for me. And it was a great win, a great fight. It was an amazing fight. And for those, whether it's Danny or Linda, if you haven't seen that fight, you should look at it. It was a great fight. And he stopped Santillan, I believe, in the 10th round in a hell of a thriller. And it was a great upset for me. Lyndon, of all the upsets this weekend, which one do you think was the best one for you?
I think the most impressive one was Kasasi. I always pronounce that name, Kasasi, with the upset over Cordina. I think he fought a really, really good fight. He pushed the pace early. He really put the pressure on Cordina, who really struggled with the pace and the power that Kasasi was putting on him. And I just think it was a really, really impressive fight. Now, maybe Danny doesn't see this as an upset. Obviously, two English fighters over there. But I didn't know a lot about Kasasi going into the fight, but I just thought he was very, very impressive. And as I said, I thought he pushed the pace really well. He kept up multi-punch, hard punch combinations, and every punch he threw was designed to hurt. And I just think he just put a beat down on Cordina that I didn't think we'd see. So that for me was the probably, I won't say the most enjoyable, but the most surprising, but also the most impressive, I think, from Kasasi. So very impressed with him. And as I said, I'm not sure whether it was an upset in England, but definitely an upset to us that didn't know much about him.
It's Kakashi, by the way. Kakashi.
Sorry, I always get the names wrong and the Russian names wrong. I'm hopeless, but Kachachi. I got that wrong.
Hey, Joe, which one did it for you? Which was the most surprising one for you?
Kakashi was a great fight. I have to give it to him. I didn't think he was going to win that fight, and he gutted it out. It was a fight where, Cordina is a great boxer, but he likes to roughhouse a little bit. He likes to boss his opponents and let them know that, this is my ring. And Kakachi, I thought, outmuscled him in these close exchanges. And that uppercut was on the money the whole fight. So on the inside, he was grinding it out. He was the bully. And I never anticipated seeing Cordina being manhandled like that and outworked and outfought like that. So I would have to say that I was quite shocked, quite surprised. I'll be honest.
Yeah, like when we talked about it offline, like we just felt just another routine fight for Cordina to look good, showcase fight. It was a showcase, but it was not for Cordina.
No.
Calix, upset of the weekend for you. You're on mute.
I think that was it for me too, because of it's not that he won, it was how he did it. He really beat Cordina up. And I like Cordina. He's a heck of an athlete, heck of a fighter. And that edged out Berinchyk to me. And that one killed me, man. I'm a Navarette fan. That one killed me. Navarette just, man, he looked sluggish at the weight, and those, so that one too. I mean, both of them were pretty big surprises to me. I thought that Navarette was going to have enough to get an easy decision over Berinchyk. I was worried at the beginning of the week, but as the week went on, I was a little more sure that Navarette was going to get it done, and then he just didn't. Looked sloppy. The things that compensate for his deficiencies in the lower weight classes, 122, 126, 130, he's just not going to get away with that at 135. He's not going to be able to compensate for those deficiencies he had, and Berinchyk exposed that. He'll be in some good fights still, but he's not going to be a top 5 guy at 135, I don't believe. But I think overall, probably Berinchyk. That's probably the surprise of the week.
I think I know what Danny's going to say, but I'm not going to say it. Let's see if I'm right. Danny, upset of the weekend for you.
Upset of the weekend. Well, what actually lost me my betting slip, I couldn't believe it, was what the first two guys said, which was Anthony Kakachi versus Joe Cordina, because I expected Sergey Kovalev to lose. I put a bet on that. I put a bet on Ajit Kabayel to upset Frank Sanchez, just like I picked Ajit Kabayel to beat Makhmudov last time out, if you guys remember. Obviously, on the main event, you know what I said. I broke it down perfectly. But Joe Cordina, former stablemate of my cousin Craig Richards, and he looked a lot better in shape in the fight camp. The pictures, last time out, he had his cheeks all sunken, his eyes were sunken, kind of like Devin Haney went in the second Kambosos fight. But this time, he looked in great shape, and I thought, yeah, it's going to be a nice routine win, showcase style fight. And then he probably, because he was talking about moving up because he is struggling with the weight to try and, fight Shakur or something. But unfortunately, what happens is you stay one fight too many. Obviously, the money was too good for him to turn down, so he did get a big Saudi bag, and he was all right in the first two. But as soon as he got caught on that break, it just that's what just turned the fight on its head. And then from then he was on the ropes trying to look for a catch counter. It just never came, and Kakachi was able to just break him down. And Kakachi is not even a big puncher. He's got about 24 victories and only about 8 stoppages inside the distance, but he obviously hits a lot harder than his record suggests. So I didn't see that one, and that's what actually lost my betting slip. Otherwise, I would have had it. Even with the Berinchyk fight, remember I said he's more than capable of beating Navarette, because I saw when he fought in Poland, and I was pretty impressed with him. And when he fought Yevin Mende in the UK before as well, Berinchyk. So that wasn't a surprise either. So yeah, it was Anthony Kakachi. He stole the upset of the weekend for me.
Oh, a hell of an upset for sure. Shout out to MAW with a super chat says, hello, fans, Roundtable on chat. Smash the like button, please, folks. There you go. Make sure you guys hit the like. Great quality stoppages for Kakashi and Kabayel. Look, that Kabayel's been making you a lot of money, Danny. Look at that. What's going on? There you go. I wasn't expecting it to be Frank Sanchez. I just wasn't, and he got beat up. So it is what it is. Gail, what's what's? Let me rephrase the question for you. Like, which upset did it for you? Like, which is the one that was the most satisfying, whatever you want to call it, for you?
I won't say it was satisfying, and I will admit to a little proximity bias since I was present and ringside and 15 feet away. But Brian Norman Jr.'s utter beatdown of Giovanni Santillan, who was on the brink, theoretically, of being anointed with the interim belt to become a full welterweight champion after years of toiling away pretty anonymously here in California. Norman took him to the woodshed, turned him over his knee, and paddled him. It was rough from the start. It was ugly. It was bloody. And it was very impressive. Sitting right in front of me in the row right at ringside was his manager and matchmaker, Jolene Mazzone of Fighters First Management. And I'm friendly and have worked with Jolene and wished her well before the fight, thinking, okay, kind of brave, put your guy in there. You're, one of your few undefeated guys in your sort of newly burgeoning, growing stable. They're still a pretty new company, and he is their first champion. The 10th round, where he knocked Santillan down twice brutally, was, you don't see that kind of destruction. It's in a lot of ways worse than just a one-hitter quitter. It's like tying a guy to the back end of a truck and dragging him on a bumpy road. It was rough. The guys inside, they're getting spattered. Tremendous victory for Norman. It's going to be very interesting to see where they take him. He walked out of that fight and did interviews minutes later. He didn't have a mark on him. Not a mark on him at all. Just that belt flung over his shoulder. Super victory for him. I'm also delighted for Denys Berinchyk. Navarette has showed a lot of vulnerabilities over his last few fights. In fact, the last time he was in San Diego, where he's now fought several times, Eduardo Baez had him on the brink of disaster, had won 6 of the first 6 rounds of their fight and was on his way to victory until Navarette pulled the rabbit out of his hat and knocked him out. He does not look good at 135 at all. He still, fortunately for him, has a belt down at 130. He has resisted for years getting a nutritionist. In fact, if you mention it to him, he's like, nah, man, I think he's going to change his tune. He needs to toughen up his preparation and see how he fares at 130, or he might as well be looking at the end of his career.
Look, one quick statement about Navarette. That's the worst I ever seen him. I mean, it was terrible.
He wasn't even entertaining. Like, it was just.
He looked flat as.
The only entertaining ringside for us was just because the fight was so wild. There was no craft involved whatsoever. Yeah. I don't mean to denigrate Berinchyk by saying that. It was just a no finesse, wild fight. But I will tell you, those of us at Media Row had it clearly for Berinchyk. I don't know what the ESPN announcers were thinking, who I listened to later after I left the arena. It was clear that Navarette just didn't, for whatever reason, didn't have it. Was it the division? Was it his training? Is time already catching up with him after a lot of crazy rough fights?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, he has lost a step and then some.
Yeah, look, he lost to Berinchyk, as we know. Some people, I had him beating Conceição by a little bit, but if he would have lost that fight, and if he would have been counted out when Liam Wilson had him down, he would be like, you could argue he was close to being 1-3 in his last 4. right? Which is crazy. And he has 1 draw, 1 win in the last 2 fights. He's definitely on the downslide. He needs to show me something soon, or else it probably is over. So it is what it is. Let's go ahead and before we get to the big fight, because I know we all have a lot of things to say about it. All right, let's talk about Jai Opetaia. All right, he had his fight with Briedis. He looked to be in control for the majority of the fight. It looked like he was going to cruise to a decision, and then I believe there was like a headbutt to his nose, and everything just changed. And before you know it, he's reeling, and he finished stronger than I think most people were saying. But nonetheless, I see why people thought he was kind of at the brink of maybe getting stopped or something. I don't, but nonetheless, he was. It wasn't the fight I expected. I'll just put it that way. And a lot of changed at the tail end of that fight. Danny, did your stock for Jai Opetaia drop? Has it stayed the same, or has it risen after this fight?
I say it stayed the same. I did expect him to stop Briedis, but that's because Briedis had been out 2 years and was 39 years old. What I didn't know is that Briedis is still that guy. Briedis is still Briedis at the end of the day. Briedis is a tough fight for everyone. His resume, if you look at the guys he's beaten, Marco Huck, Dorticus, he gave Usyk his toughest, closest fight on the cards, 114. So Briedis is no joke. He's got a steel chin. Jai Opetaia hit him with some massive left hands and it just bounced off him. He's got heart. He's got a big punch himself. He hits very hard. And Jai Opetaia, you've got that. He was a bit more tentative than usual because you are going to have that in your memory that a man just broke your jaw in 2 places last time out with his fist. So he had to be a bit more careful. Nice straight lefts to the body and stuff like that, but he had to be a bit more sensible. I know everyone was expecting him to blast Briedis out, including myself, because of how I saw him smash up my fellow British guys. So we was looking for another spectacular highlight reel knockout, but Briedis has never been knocked out. I'm not even sure he's even been dropped before. So it's not the end of the world that Jai Opetaia couldn't get rid of him. He won the fight comfortably, but yeah, on the back end, just like in the first fight, Briedis finished strong, and Jai Opetaia was in a bit of bother. But hey, that's another great 12 rounds in Jai Opetaia's bank. And I don't see any of the other cruiserweights giving him trouble like that at the end of the day. And Briedis, it's probably a good fight for him to go out on at his age. But if he wants to carry on, he's showed that he's still got stuff left in the tank. And it's a good. And yeah, Jai Opetaia was bleeding, but he's one of those guys, I think, even though Mr. John Fury, when he was bleeding, saying, I love this blood and guts and this, I think Jai Opetaia really does love that because I've seen him in press conferences when he was with Jordan Thompson. He's like, don't disappoint me. I want that fight. I want a good fight. Don't disappoint me. So he loves that violence. So he's up for a good fight. And that's what Marius Briedis gave him. So, yeah, for me, he's still the man at cruiserweight. And, yeah, he hasn't lost any stock, in my opinion. The only thing I would say is that Marius Briedis' stock has risen for me. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Gail, same, up, down? How do you feel after Jai's performance?
Good performance. We all hope that it would be round 13 on, right, of the first fight. That was a brutally tough fight, and neither guy walks away from a fight like that exactly the same as they did when they walked in the ring. So this was by far, what we expected. With this exception, I am a little concerned about the fragility, if you will, of both these guys. Both of them suffered damage in this fight. One guy gets his nose broken and he says, all right, you break my nose, I'm going to break yours. And, especially on Opetaia's end, who's by far the younger man, it is a bit of a concern. Fortunately, against anyone else not named Marius Briedis, he's taken care of them handily and not really been threatened by anybody. I think it will be much of the same, but I don't see any point in Briedis fighting him again. Whether he wants to see if he can take out one of the other cruiserweight belts, it depends on how serious his injury was, because time is not on his side. He's going to need time to heal, and he may decide, I got life-changing money this weekend. I imagine he is not, buying luxury automobiles and vacation homes. I imagine he lives a fairly modest lifestyle. He may decide he's done, and I salute him and wish him well if he did. Opetaia, I don't think will be challenged by any of the current cruiserweights, save except for a surprising, surging Zurdo Ramirez. And I'd like to see that fight, because Zurdo does have a puncher's chance. And I see Adam Hurley in our chat. You're right there with me, man. I'd enjoy seeing that, but I do worry a little bit about how well Opetaia's face, his rebuilt face by now is going to hold up. But he's an exciting guy to watch as long as we get him.
For sure, for sure. Just a quick stat for everybody. It's not really a stat, but Briedis has lost 3 times, twice to Opetaia and 1 to Usyk. Opetaia beat him by unanimous decision. Usyk beat him by majority decision. Now, it's a small detail. I just wanted to put that out there, right? Lyndon, stock up, same or down?
Yeah, I've been asked this a few times in the last couple of days. Look, I probably don't read into it as much as others out there. Look, I think what we're looking at is he got rocked in the last couple of rounds. Of course, the accidental headbutt, by the way. But if you look at the first 8-9 rounds, it was an absolute shutout by Jai Opetaia. I expected a tough fight. I thought that Jai's is more experienced now on the big stage. His confidence is up as a champion. Briedis hadn't fought since the first fight a couple of years ago. Obviously getting on in age, 39 years of age or whatever it was. But so I expected Jai to win, but I didn't think it'd be easy. But for the first 9 rounds, I thought it was an absolute shutout. And my disappointment, I suppose, a little bit with Jai was that not that he did get rocked or whatever. It was just his reaction to it. I would have thought by now, and it's all experience, but instead of boxing smart, tying Briedis up, giving him angles, giving some footwork, taking a couple of steps back, he continued to engage with Briedis. And I think that's why Briedis came on so well and landed some big shots. I'm not necessarily in the camp that says it was credit to Briedis. He's a tough guy and he hung in there and everything else. But I think it was more Jai Opetaia that made it a little bit shaky in those last couple of rounds, more than Briedis, turning back the clock, if that makes sense. I just think the fact that Jai was rocked by the accidental headbutt, he was shaken up, he's probably swallowing blood, all the rest of it. And I just think he reacted badly to it. And I think in his comments after the fight would back that up. He admitted that he didn't do the right thing. As I said, he didn't clinch, didn't hold, didn't move, didn't take a step back and take a breath. He tried to engage with Briedis, but just played into his hand. So I think it was more of a case of Briedis as Opetaia's maybe a little bit of inexperience still, rather than, Briedis being the one, if that makes sense. So look, I'm not. I know there's been a few things said too that maybe Opetaia, it's not the time for heavyweight and everything else. But I just think if he does go to heavyweight, yes, he's got a lot of things to work on and everything else, and needs a few more fights. But I think as he puts on size, the power will come. And just like Usyk did, just like Holyfield did, just like Michael Spinks did, I think Jai Opetaia can do it. But just over maybe a longer journey than maybe jumping straight into a big fight with a heavyweight now. Just take his time a little bit more, but certainly didn't lose anything in my book. I just think he has to learn from the experience and just learn how to behave, or not behave, but how to react in situations like this. But certainly didn't drop in my stocks in my book. And Briedis, obviously showed how tough he is and what a great champion he was as well.
For sure. Calix, did the stock go up, down, or stay the same for you, for Jai Opetaia?
Same. And we talked about this last week, D-Star. I had a nice little number 10 spot warmed up on my pound for pound list for him. I was just waiting for that great performance, and we didn't get the great performance. So I think he stays somewhere between 11 and 15, and I feel like he's in that range, somewhere between 11, 15, 11 to 20 pound for pound. And unfair to him, I think, because Briedis is just such a tough dude, man. Like, I was thinking about this while I was watching those late rounds. Is, man, Usyk beat this guy 6 years ago. And that was, I feel like, Usyk's toughest fight. That was a tougher fight for Usyk than Fury, than both the Anthony Joshua fights, particularly the second Anthony Joshua fight. That fight in 2018 was Usyk's toughest test, his toughest fight. Briedis is not one to mess around with. I just thought, and it was a silly bet, and this is where I messed up on Saturday. I bet the stoppage. I thought Opetia was going to get a stoppage just based off of the 2-year layoff, and 39 years old. But what we saw is Briedis he's still Briedis, as Danny said earlier. He's still, although the reflexes may not be there, all that stuff, that toughness is still there. That guy he's not going to let you go in there and just and beat him up. It's not going to happen. And we saw what happened and how it turned late in the fight. So that keeps Opetia off of my pound for pound list. But I look at what's there for him. The landscape is completely open for him at cruiserweight. This is his toughest test. It opens up for him. I agree with Lyndon. I don't think there should be any rush to move him up to heavyweight right now. He's 28 years old. You got time. You got a couple years to try. If given the opportunity to consolidate all the belts at cruiserweight and follow Usyk, I think he does it. I think he beats Zordo. I think he beats Zilliam Smith. These are fights that are very winnable for him. It's just, will the politics behave? Will it allow him to do it? But there's no rush here. He's still got time, and his stock is the same for me.
All right, Babe, same question to you. How did the stock move here?
I may even say it goes up slightly, and I'll tell you why. Because I've seen a lot of fighters get headbutted in the nose like that, and that's a horrible, horrible injury because you can't breathe. You swallow your own blood, and it really fatigues a fighter. I broke my nose one time in sparring, and it really hurts. I couldn't continue. It was just really painful. And for him to continue on and hang on, like I said, I've seen a lot of fighters when they get headbutted like that in the nose, they'll ask for the fight to go to the scorecards. I don't want to name names, but it's happened before in the past, and he chose to not do that, and he hung in there. And I'm sure he was under some real duress. And it's moments like that where these are experiences that if a fighter goes through, it just strengthens their resolve and makes them even better, right? It's one of those experiences. Once you feel as though you can get over that hump in a situation like that, it only adds to your confidence as a fighter. The first fight, I had it 115 and 113 for Jai. He was on cruise control in this fight. He was landing some really sharp punches, really good left hands from the outside, landing some decent uppercuts in the mid-range as well. And Briedis showed a lot of grit in this fight, a lot of resolve, and he hung in there, and he came to win. He just was a little bit outgunned in this fight. And I think Jai showed that he had heart, showed that he had grit, showed that he wasn't going to give up. And based upon how those first 9 rounds went in comparison to the first fight, I thought it was a major improvement, if I'm being honest. Now, I thought he was going to stop Briedis, but again, most of us did not think Briedis would be Briedis. That's why. Briedis, as everyone said, I think Danny so eloquently put, Briedis is still Briedis. So if Briedis is still Briedis and you're winning 9 rounds in a row like that against him, who else does that? Usyk couldn't do that, right? So I think this is a great performance overall. Taking into account the circumstances of how that happened. That was a freak accident. So it's what it is.
Right. Now let's talk about that main event. Right. Look, this fight lived up to the hype. We had to wait for it, obviously. And this is before the names were Fury-Usyk on the bill. We've been waiting for an undisputed champion at heavyweight for over 2 decades, and we finally got it. It was finally here. After so many times, we were so close, so many times, right? But we couldn't quite get there, whether it was the Klitschko's, their brothers. Only Calix wanted them to fight, but I understood. You know what I mean? They're not going to fight each other for undisputed. Would have been nice, but they didn't do it. All right. We had Joshua and Wilder. This was in the days when we were told no, these fights can't happen. You don't know the business. This is the sides of the streets. That was the fight that started it, to be quite frank, right? We couldn't get it then. We thought we might have had it when Ruiz beat Joshua, and maybe Ruiz Wilder fight for it. That didn't happen. And then we thought we were this close. Undisputed, Fury versus AJ, but arbitration forced Fury to do the trilogy. So, and here we are. And then Usyk comes in, and they think Usyk ruined the whole thing, right? But because of Usyk, he was the missing piece the whole time. He's actually the one we needed to actually make this shit happen. So here we are. Man, what a fight. I just want you guys' thoughts on the fight right now. What you thought of the fight and the controversial ninth round? Do you think it should have been stopped? And how did you score the fight? Let's start with you, Lyndon.
Well, you're right, D-Style. The fact that we actually got the fight, I suppose, is the first win that we had. But for the first time in a long time, a fight of this magnitude actually measured up. I thought it was a great... Well, so it wasn't... we had the ebbs and flows, of course, and the drama and all that sort of stuff. But I thought it was... it started off as a technical fight. Then, of course, we had the tempo sort of moving from one fighter to the other. But, look, I thought Usyk started very, very well, but I was quite impressed early with Fury as well, with his range, his movement. He speared that jab out. I just don't think he was busy enough in the first couple of rounds, and I thought Usyk won those first 2 rounds. But then I thought Tyson Fury took over in the next 4 rounds, maybe even 5 rounds. I thought he looked absolutely sensational, to the point where I actually thought he might have had Usyk in a bit of trouble. He was really starting to go to the body, landing some good shots to the head, and really had Usyk second guessing and looking a little bit gassed as well. But then, of course, the tide turned. The 9th round, look, obviously enough has been said about that. What a round by Usyk. But I can't understand the controversy about it, to be honest. I thought, I know there's been a lot said about the fact that the referee shouldn't have called it a knockdown. Well, of course it should have been a knockdown. If you know the rules, if the ropes or the corner or whatever it is stops the fighter from going down, then it's a knockdown. So I think Mark Nelson 100% hit that on the head right there, and should it have been stopped? Of course it shouldn't have been stopped. It's an undisputed heavyweight title fight. We've seen a lot of fights go a lot further than that. He got rocked. He went down, took the count. Maybe Mark Nelson gave him, with being right at the end of the round, maybe had an extra couple of seconds here or there, but it should have been stopped. Absolutely not. Should have been a knockdown? Absolutely, yes. So, and then I thought that Fury tried to come in a little bit in the 11th or 12th, but I think Usyk did enough. I had it 115, 112 for Usyk. Look, I know there's been a few that have said maybe the other way for Fury, and maybe you could make a case, but I just can't see how, especially with the knockdown, how Fury could have actually won the fight. Maybe worst case a draw. But I thought it was a great fight, great heart by both men. And just as I said, just one of the first times in recent history where we've had a fight of this magnitude actually measure up. Absolutely loved it. I hope there's a rematch in October, and I think Fury can win the fight in October if he tweaks a couple of things, especially going to the body a lot more, because he had a lot of success in those middle rounds. He needs to go to the body, but he can win it. Let's just hope we get to see it.
Yeah, look, it lived up to it. And I was heard growing up about all these great fights, right? And then when I was pumped up for De La Hoya Trinidad, it didn't quite live up to the hype. I still remember the last undisputed heavyweight fight, Lewis Holyfield. God bless both guys, but the fight wasn't that great to me, right? But that's Lennox Lewis's effective way to win was the reason that fight sucked. But that's not here nor there. Danny, talk to us, man, about how did you see the fight, score the fight? What do you think of round 9?
How I saw the fight. So I'll give you the breakdown. I kind of done a round by round on the fight night. So first of all, I noticed with the fight week, Fury wasn't able to look at Usyk in the face, similar to what happened to Errol Spencer with Terence Crawford. Then on the entrance reminded me of Billy Joe Saunders versus Canelo, where he started dancing on the stage, trying to overcompensate his nerves by trying to appear very confident, showboat playing to the crowd and look confident, but I could tell he was scared. And then he decides to just run to the ring, where we know in history, fighters who run to the ring, it doesn't really bode well for them. So the first round, Usyk landing good body shots, Fury trying to, do the long arm and stuff like that, but it wasn't very effective at that point. So I gave the first round to Usyk. The second round I gave to Usyk. Overall work rate was better. Fury landed a couple of power shots, but Usyk's work rate was better. Third round I gave to Fury. Fury started landing a couple of body shots and good, decent uppercuts in there, and but Usyk did hit Fury, which made Fury on the instant replay. His eyes sort of rolled in his head, like, look, he was a bit surprised by the power. Round 4, I actually gave to Usyk. There was some good body shots from Fury, but Usyk's overall work rate and front foot pressure won the fourth. Then Fury took over when he started getting home with those sort of uppercut bolos to the body of Usyk, which was troubling him. I know one of them strayed a bit low, but apart from that, all the body shot was, fair game, and Usyk looked a bit troubled by them. Round 5, I gave to Fury. Usyk had a decent finish in the last 10 seconds, but Fury dominated that round. Round 6 was a big round for Fury. That's when he rocked Usyk with the uppercut, a shot that Joe Habib was calling upon. He thought that was going to be a big factor in the fight, and that did become a good weapon in the fight. So round 6 is when I started thinking, oh man, because then Fury's really getting in his game. I know he did the showboating thing in round 1, but that was just silliness. But then when he started really feeling himself and getting into the groove, I was like, oh, Fury looks like Fury's going to take over now. But Usyk did use the persistence beats resistance type tactics, where he was just all over him. I remember there was an interview where he was like, I'm not going to leave you alone. I'm going to be with you the whole step of the way. So he was really on that. Round 7, I gave to, where is it? Round 7 was the Usyk round. No, sorry. Round 7, I gave to Fury, but Fury was visibly tiring. And I noticed, I was like, oh, he's getting a bit tired. He's breathing quite heavy here. And then round 8, I gave to Usyk, because then Fury did visibly slow down. Round 9, we know, is a 10-8 round where, if that was the other way round, in my opinion, and that was Usyk bouncing off of those ropes like that, the ref would have definitely waved it off, in my opinion. I don't think he would have got a fair shake. The way he was stumbling, it looked actually like a film, like it looked like he was half pretending, if you didn't know any better. But he was really, I think maybe he's so tall that he couldn't actually fall over properly because the ropes just kept holding him up. Because he's so tall, he couldn't actually just go over. That was actually to his detriment, being that tall. But yeah, he was really in serious trouble there. And he's had the benefit of the doubt a couple of times. Jack Reese has gave him the benefit of the doubt in the 12th round versus Wilder. He obviously got a benefit of the doubt versus Mark Nelson. Maybe Mark Nelson made a bit of a bad decision, but maybe he was a bit concussed from taking a big left hook earlier in the night on one of the undercard fights. I don't know if any of you lot managed to see that. So that was funny. Round 10, another Usyk round. Round 11, Usyk. And then round 12, I scored it a draw, but I thought, because Fury looked a bit more active, he probably nicked it. So my score, I had it's either 117, 112, or 116. No, sorry, 116, 112, or 115, 112, if you scored the round to Fury. So yeah, Usyk deservedly won. And yeah, it was. I think it was a very good fight.
Okay. All right. Gail, how did you see the fight? What was your score here? And also, what did you think of round 9?
I had scored at 115 to 112 for Usyk. I could also support a 114, 113 scorecard for Usyk. I think I'd have a very hard time seeing a scorecard for Fury, because with the knockdown, it means he had to win 7 rounds to win that fight, 7+. So A lot of people have described this fight as a roller coaster. I described it as a 3-act play. You had the first act with Usyk tactically in control. The second act, Fury disarming him, taking control, using all the tools, all the physical tools and his experience that we know he has. It's something very interesting happened that was described to me after the fight. After the 7th round, at which point I had the fight scored 5-2 for Fury, Usyk, who is a very devoutly religious man, asked for the crucifix in his corner, put it to his lips, and went out there. And that's where we saw the fight turn, first in the 8th round and then in the 9th round. And later in the evening, when I was covering the Top Rank card, I happened to walk out right toward the whole Ukrainian crew waiting together on the steps. And I stopped to talk to them and talk to them a bit about the earlier fight. And one of the women in the crowd, I believe a wife of one of the fighters, said, "You need to understand something. When we're in there, we are fighting for something much bigger than you can imagine. We are fighting for our people. We are fighting for our country. Fights are won in the heart and mind first. The physical comes after that." And Usyk had that all over Fury. And that's how he turned the fight around. Now, he had to use his skills to do it. But what he might lack in raw power, he gains in accuracy, angles, and footwork. And that was where he made it happen. We've seen Fury hit plenty of times. This is by far from the first time Fury has been down in the ring. Wilder knocked him down several times. Steve Cunningham dropped him. But he got up with his mind and his faculties relatively intact. This time, he would never have lasted the round had the bell not sounded the minute referee Mark Nelson released him. Mark Nelson handled the knockdown situation perfectly. There was criticism from some people about Nelson not calling earlier knockdowns, asserting that because Fury was bounced back against the ropes, it should have been called. The rules say you must be held up by the ropes for it to be considered a knockdown. Thank you, Joe. I see you nodding. Calix, see you nodding. So just because somebody's back is touching the ropes after being hit doesn't mean he's being held up. Plenty of boxers bounce off ropes. And sometimes it's, not under their control. They're slammed back. They hit the ropes. They come forward. Fury covered every square inch of that ring within that minute, wobbling around and being smacked back and forth. But he was only truly held up by the ropes at the very end when Nelson did call the knockdown. And it is important for the referees to know the fighters. There isn't another fighter I can think of. Guys in the chat, let me know if you come up with a name. Nobody that I can think of has better recuperative powers from a knockdown than Fury. And it is an unprecedented, unified, undisputed fight for the heavyweight championship. Nelson knew that. So he is going to give those guys every opportunity to finish on their own terms, to go out on their shield, whatever it takes. So when I hear criticism of how Nelson handled it, it may be you don't really know the rules of boxing that well. As we were mentioning in the chat, some people still think there's something called a standing 8 count. There hasn't been a standing 8 count for 20 years. It's considered dangerous. You either call the knockdown or you end the fight. That's it. There's no pause to see if someone's okay, which is what a standing 8 used to be for. It was handled well. The context and the circumstances and the individuals in the ring should make a difference to a referee. They should deal with somebody like Tyson Fury differently than they deal with a kid in his second 4-round fight who needs to be protected because he doesn't really know what he's doing. Tremendous fight. These fights don't always live up to the hype. You know, there is the danger of raised expectations. And we had that. I went in thinking, you know, this could be a very technical fight. If Usyk is smart, that's how he's going to handle it. And that is partially why, based on his skills, I had picked him to win before the fight. I didn't really see it coming down to being as definitive a performance for him. Bravo. Will we get a rematch? Both guys need to heal up a little bit. They're not going to have a lot of time off if they're really going to try to hold to that October date. You know, if they do that, they're really going to need to be back in training camp probably by the beginning of July, end of July.
Well, let's hold on the rematch. We're going to talk about that next. But
And myself, so let's talk about that in a few minutes. And folks, weigh in on that those questions in the chat, please.
Ring IQ right on time, actually, here for Beeb's Soul. And I'm about to go to Joe Beeb by coincidence. Thanks for the super chat. Much appreciated. Look, Joe Beeb, I mean, how did you see the fight? What was your scorecard? And what is your thoughts on round 9, the knockdown controversy?
Now, as I told Base yesterday, I was notified that my services as the president of the Fury Maniacs is no longer needed. And then today I got an email asking me to send my 2 Fury t-shirts back to the organization. But with all that being said, I did score the fight for Usyk. I could see a variety of scores. I could see 116 and 111. I could see 115, 112. And I could see 114 to 113, which is what I had. I had it 6-6 in rounds. I thought rounds 2, 3, and 12 were swing rounds. Some people disagree with that. I thought that Usyk had 5 clear rounds. I thought, in my opinion, Fury had 4 clear rounds, and there was the 3 swings. I gave Usyk the first 2. I gave Fury 3 through 7. Then I had Usyk going on his little run of rounds 8 through 11. And I thought Fury eked out the 12th. I thought the 12th was a pretty close round, but I thought Fury, in his last minute of activity, I thought he landed a little bit more decisive blows. But I could see people giving that to Usyk, and I wouldn't have a problem with it. I mean, Chris Mannix gave it to him. I think the thing about this fight was, for 7 rounds, it actually did go pretty similar to how I thought it would go. I thought once Fury kind of got his rhythm and was able to start timing Usyk, I thought he'd be able to keep him on the outside, which he was able to do for what I believe was the better part of those 5 rounds that I gave him in a row. But here's the thing. We talk about fighters who have heart, right? And a lot of fighters, when they have heart, they fight on instincts. But Usyk not only fights on heart and instinct when he gets hurt, he's still able to maintain that boxing IQ, right? He's still able, like, guys will bite down on their mouthpiece sometimes and they'll just grit it out. Usyk can still think when he's hurt, right? He doesn't just fight off of instinct. I'm sure he does fight off instinct to some degree, but he's still such a smart fighter. Because, you know, in that 8th round, when he landed that left hand down the pike and he bloodied Fury's nose, right? Fury backed him up in that sequence, and Fury felt a little comfortable, like, okay, this guy's not in the position to punch now because I put him on his back foot. I kind of buzzed him a little bit with the body shot. But in this fight, when he got hit with those body shots, he would take a deep breath and he went right back to the fray. So you got to give him credit for that. He showed a lot of heart. And under the fire, he had the grace under fire, where he still had the ability to find a way, not only just through his toughness, but just through his intelligence as well. So when you have the toughness and the intelligence combined, that's a hard combination to deal with. So when he landed that left hand to Fury's nose and he kind of busted up his nose, I think that really, really troubled Fury. And then I think Fury even may have said to himself, damn, this guy really hurt me. I didn't anticipate that. I didn't anticipate this guy being able to hurt me. And I didn't anticipate this guy being able to come back after I hit him with those body shots. I thought that I could debilitate him and nullify him with those body shots and possibly slow him down. And the fact that you couldn't slow him down with those body shots, I think that surprised Fury. It surprised me, right? So then the 9th round comes around. So Fury's saying to himself, I got to protect my nose, right? So I'm keeping my hand here in front of my face. I don't want to get hit with that left down the pike, because he was landing that left hand down the pike. And what does he do? He throws that tomahawk punch that Triple G used to throw with his backhand, and he comes over the top. As Base and I were discussing this yesterday, and he comes over the top, like this, and it's a looping shot, and he lands with this knuckle right here. These two knuckles are the hardest part of the fist, and he landed like this right here in the temple area. Fury, he did not see that punch coming, and his legs were gone. Now, I have to be honest. If I'm in that ring and I'm the referee, seeing him, flop all over the ring like that and seeing how bad his legs were, right? And the eyes rolling in the back of his head, I probably would have waved it off. But I'm glad that the referee did not wave it off, because you can also look at it from the standpoint that, may he rest in peace, Steve Smogler. I interviewed him back in 2013. And he said, you got to look at, you just can't have a standard for everyone. You have to understand the fighter who's in that ring, and you have to go off of reputation. So if a guy can come back from punishment, has a history of coming back from punishment, and obviously if it's a championship fight, you got to give guys the benefit of the doubt based off of their reputation. And I believe based off of Fury's reputation, he's earned that right to be able to continue in that situation. And because of the magnitude of the fight. So because, me being the pacifist that I am, I'm glad that the referee didn't share my same sentiment. So I'm glad the fight wasn't stopped. But I'll be honest, I thought it was going to be stopped, and I probably would have stopped it if I was the referee. But again, I'm glad he didn't do it. And ultimately, it ended up being the right decision, because you know why? Hindsight's 2020. Fury did continue the fight, and I believe he won the 12th round. So, he did make the right decision, because Fury was able to continue, and he didn't get stopped. But Usyk, I believe, really showed how great he was. I mean, obviously we knew he was great, but this just takes Usyk to another level. This puts Usyk in the history books. And again, I still think Fury made a really good account of himself here. I thought this was a close, competitive fight. And I normally don't like rematches, but I would love to see this again. And I'd be interested to see if Fury could do better. But, he did say that this was the best he could do at the press conference. So you have to ask yourself, can he do better than this? And Usyk has always shown the ability to kick it up.
We're going to talk about that next. Let's hold off on that for now. But Ring IQ, it says, I warned you, Beeb, the Capricorn Nation is the future.
Well, Ring, I've been trying to tell you since you were a young man that one of the tenets of being a man is being able to admit when you're wrong. It only makes you stronger. It's one of the tenets of being a man.
Shout out to Ring IQ. Thanks for the.
When you're 55, you'll realize this as well, too, Ring.
One day. Woo. Man, I'm glad I'm quite a ways from there. Anyway, Calix, what you think of the fight? What you think of the round 9? And how'd you score it? Hold off on any plays. That's the next topic. No rematch talk. But go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to talk about the rematch. No, I'm kidding. Good fight. Really good fight. Lived up to the hype. First, I'll address the round 9 thing. I want to echo the sentiments I've heard, and it's always after. And look, it'll be after good fights too, and it'll live up to the hype. And then somebody will start dragging in an inhaler, and then controversies about there were actually 5 knockdowns, and it's like, what is this? We just watched a good fight. What are you guys doing? I actually thought that Nelson did a great job in the 9th round. as Gail talked about earlier, just because your back is hitting the ropes, that doesn't make it a knockdown. We've seen guys get caught in the corner before. Jermaine Taylor against Kelly Pavlik, and that could get ugly. I thought Nelson stepped in at the right time. That's exactly when it became a knockdown to me, was when Fury hit the corner and both of his hands are down and Nelson stepped in, counted to 8. The only thing, and D-Style, you and I have talked about this ad nauseum. I can't stand this thing that referees are doing now where they count to 8, they rub off the gloves, and then they ask them if they're okay like 12 times. Can we please just rub the gloves off and allow the guy who hurt the guy to take advantage of hurting the guy? Get out of the way.
In California, they do a sobriety test. They walk this way, walk that way.
It's ridiculous. Get out of the way. You got to
Give
let
me
the
10
guy
jumping
capitalize.
jacks. Give me 10 jumping jacks.
So that's my only criticism of Nelson. Otherwise, I thought he handled it beautifully. And that's important because you can run a good fight that way. You can run a meaningful and important fight that people have been waiting 25 years to see the Undisputed Heavyweight Championship by a guy messing it up in the ring as a third guy in the ring. But as far as the fight, I had it 116, 111. I thought it was a fairly easy fight to score, to be honest. I had Usyk winning the first 3. And then Fury got in his bag from 4 to 7, particularly 5 through 6. And then I want to talk about what happened between 7 and 8 because Gail talked about it. I noticed it the second time I watched the fight. But the 5th and 6th, if you look at the CompuBox stats, Fury only outlanded Usyk in 3 rounds, the whole fight. Usyk outlands Fury in 9 of the 12 rounds. But the 5th and 6th rounds in particular, Fury got in his bag. And Fury's in his bag when he's free fighting. He's mixing things up. Every once in a while, he'll clinch. He'll try to lean on him a little bit, throwing the jab, and he went to the body beautifully. And an interesting thing happened after round 7. He goes up on my scorecards. I had Fury up 4 to 3. And I look at the live betting odds, and he's up. He's a 10-1 favorite at that point. Fury went to minus 1,000 in the betting odds after round 7. He was a heavy favorite to win the fight. And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, this is a Fury fight right now. This is a Fury fight. He's looking good. This is looking good for him. But Gail alluded to this earlier. And the only reason I noticed is because of this stupid inhaler conspiracy theory that people floating out there. And somebody pointed out the crucifix thing. And then I saw the footage of this between 7th and 8th. And his trainer asked him, do you want the crucifix? And he said, yes. He kissed the crucifix. And then he says the prayer in Ukrainian. And then he gets up. And from the beginning of the 8th round to the end of the fight, he just batters Tyson Fury. And he goes to a place that only few athletes can access in the world. He goes to this special place. It's like the Kobe mentality, the Mamba mentality. It's Kobe, it's Jordan. When things get sketchy, they're not going to let you get the better of them. They're going to go to a level that you're not going to be able to match. And from the 8th round on, Usyk accessed that right there. He accessed that energy, and he went to a different level that Fury just could not match. He was levels from Fury from the 8th round on, and it showed. And I got to give Fury credit. I'm not going to kick him while he's down here because I got to give him credit because he took Usyk to that place. You got to give him credit for that. He took him to that place, but from the 8th round to the 12th round, I felt like Usyk just was levels ahead of Fury at that point. He went to a place that Fury just could not match him. And the 8th round really set up what happened in the 9th. He really beat up on Fury in that 8th round. And then the 9th round, boy, he was beaten off. And I was watching highlights of Boxing Waves live thing, and he brought it up. This looked different than the Wilder thing. And this is another thing I got to give Usyk credit for that makes him special is when Wilder had Fury hurt, he's panicking. He's losing his mind. He's throwing all kind of crazy shots. He's all over the place. Usyk knew, much like the referee knows Usyk's Fury's history, Usyk knew it too. He's like, this guy's he's gonna recover in this minute. I didn't get to him in the 9th round. He was saved by the bell. So I'm gonna go right back to my methodical breakdown. And if the knockout presents itself, then it's there. Then I'll go for it then. But otherwise, I'm gonna go back into this high IQ levels, angles, and beat this guy. And that's what he did. And much like Beeb, though, the first 7 rounds, Fury did good work, as what you were saying earlier, Beeb. And I said that going into this fight, I felt like Fury was going to be a tougher code to crack than AJ for Usyk, because he's less robotic. He's more of a free fighter. But once he did figure Fury out, it was ugly. And AJ had more moments late in the fight against Usyk. It was more of an ebb and flow. This was once Usyk figured Fury out and got to him, it was over. It was over. And special fighter, just special. And I feel privileged to be watching some of these guys right now. Usyk, in a way, Bud in particular, Canelo too. I just feel privileged to be watching some of these all-time greats right now.
For sure. Base, how's it going, brother?
All good.
Talk to us what you think of the fight and how'd you score it, and what is your opinion on round 9 in particular and the controversy with the knockdown?
Okay, so yeah, shout out to everyone on the panel. See, I came at just the right moment. You guys know this is the main reason I said let me on the panel. Let me have my moment here as well as everywhere else. I had the exact same scorecard as Calix, so in terms of how I scored it, quite simply exactly the same. I didn't think the fight was. You see, here's the thing. A lot of people, to me, feel like I feel like they used the wrong words. It was a competitive fight. It was very competitive. It was spirited. It was a very fun fight to watch. However, I do not think the fight was close in any way, shape, or form. Usyk, to me, clearly won 8 rounds of the 12, which makes it a clear decision, makes it a clear victory. But there were very competitive rounds. Even though, even sort of the rounds that people would say were, you know, maybe the closer rounds between them, minus the, actually you would say is the 3rd and the 12th, if anyone says those are the close ones. I know Beeb says the 2nd. I totally think that was a clean and clear Usyk round. The 3rd to me was a clear round as well, but I can understand where you say the 3rd, because that was the round where Tyson Fury started to get a bit of a foothold and he was having more success. So, you know, fair enough, you say it was closer, but to me it was still clear. 12th round, again, I feel it was a more contentious one, but it still felt clear. So but to me, there was a good, clean 6 rounds clear for Usyk. There was only a 4 rounds clear for Fury, and then the other 2, to me, even if you give them to Fury, they're generous. Now, like the way Usyk obviously started this fight. Now, obviously he had to be the front foot guy realistically, because he knew Fury wasn't going to be. But as he said, like, even though what he meant, what we found out later, is what he meant about I won't leave you alone. It was actually, when you're down in the dumps after losing, I will be there to comfort you. That's what he actually meant by that. But we all took it to mean, at its literal meaning, is what he does in the ring. I won't leave you alone. I will be there. Anytime that you think you can get a break, nope, I'm going to be there to make you either have to fight me or you are going to take a punch. Like, you're either going to have to fight me off or you're going to have to move. Like, you don't get a moment to breathe. And in that first round specifically, the same way that Usyk found his range in that Joshua 1 fight, even though it took him a bit longer to find it up top, he found it immediately from like the first 10 seconds in terms of hitting that body. Everyone was saying, oh, how much of a body attack is he going to employ? Because he employed it to Joshua a little bit as well, but he actually went a lot more head hunting when it came to his Joshua fight. Maybe because he knew Joshua was a bit more stationary in terms of head movement and whatnot. But yeah, he was, the first thing I noticed from round 1, when he was actually on the offensive and Tyson Fury was clowning around trying to act as if he was winning the rounds while not actually doing anything, is he was holding his feet a lot more when he was digging in those, either the backhands to the body or even the stab jabs. You saw him through rounds, I think this is the first 3, 1 to 3. He wasn't moving as much as he normally does. He wasn't moving as much as he did in the Dubois fight, where he had even a bit of a spongier canvas, and but you could see he was making a conscious effort to hold his feet to make sure that he digs these shots in. Maybe that's because he knows that Fury has a bigger punch resistance than others, or he's not. Maybe because he doesn't feel he's as quick to get off a counter. so he doesn't have to basically just, you know, get the shot off and then move before the counter comes. So you could kind of see him. He wasn't there trying to sort of dance around in front of him. It was, all right, we're gonna fence with this jab, but as soon as I feel I'm comfortable in range, I'm planting my feet and I'm letting the shots go. So first 3 rounds I thought was pretty much a lot of that. Again, we get to round 3 where Fury does make a much better effort for it, in my opinion. But he doesn't really land a lot. A lot of it is gloves and arms and whatnot. But then obviously we get to rounds like 4, 5, 6. I don't really need to go through them. Fury was in his ascendancy. In those rounds, he bossed the fight like completely. And he came back, and you say to yourself, oh, okay, like maybe Fury is what he has said he has been. You give him that grace in that moment, because he takes over. Usyk is still doing the exact same things. So you almost then say to yourself, oh, okay, so is Usyk almost not so much giving him this fight, because obviously Fury's made adjustments to get into this position, but Usyk isn't on the back foot now. He's not backpedaling. He's still doing the same things. He's still trying to stay in that certain kill zone with Fury. He's taking certain shots. It's almost like he's willing to do that just to make sure that Fury is working. And when you kind of got to round 7, when it became even, it was a very close in that round. Again, I still thought it was quite clearly a Fury round, even though I know some other people gave it the other way. But you could then see at that moment Fury started to become a bit more he became a bit more weary. You could see from, I think, the end of round 6, especially when he got the uppercut and he tried to sort of come in with a few extra flurries, but you could almost see in his face that his brain's registering like, okay, this is where it should actually be over now. I've hit people with that before. It's not working. Then all of a sudden it looks like you can see him breathing a bit heavier because he's having to work. And then you say, okay, so now how is your gas tank gonna hold up? Because this is what this guy does. He's loaded you into his fight, and he's made you fight a fight that you don't like fighting. He hasn't been biting on those feints. He's been prepared to take some of that damage, but now he's made it even in that stanza. So then we get to obviously round 8. Now round 8 is Usyk coming out pretty much like a man possessed, like dominates that round as far as I'm concerned. There's a couple decent shots from Tyson Fury, but ultimately we see that backhand which pops the nose, and Fury is in all kinds of trouble at that minute. Now, funny enough, round 9, prior to what happens, is actually, to me, a Fury round. He was doing very, very well to get back into the fight. I felt like he had Usyk under pretty good control for the majority of it. Usyk obviously still in front of him, making him have to work. He's working a bit more erratically now, because again, he's keeps dabbing the nose. He's not breathing the same way. You can just tell that he's in a bit of distress, but he's winning back that round. So he's making this fight, or it looks like he's turning this fight back in his favor in this moment. And then, as we see in typical sort of Tyson Fury fashion, probably at that moment, he felt that either he got overconfident or he switched off, or Usyk started. I saw there was a couple of times Usyk was actually reading his signs and his telltale signs, and a couple of times he chose not to exploit them, because Fury was actually doing certain resets and stuff right in front of Usyk, and he doesn't go for it. Almost like maybe he's throwing this one out as a decoy. And then a couple of times he did it and he would edge a bit closer, but he just still didn't do it there. In this one particular stanza, after one of those Fury tells, in the moment where he's almost seen him switch off, that's when he's caught him with that big left cross. He missed. He caught him with a straight right. I mean, a straight left a little bit earlier than that, but it was a bit more of a grazing shot. But he realized that he had him in range. He had him where he wanted. And yeah, in terms of that particular moment, I feel like earlier on in the fight, Mark Nelson did a couple of poor jobs in terms of getting close, or even talking about some of the either the lower, maybe the low shots, or some of the tactics which weren't necessarily couth. But Fury needed to make that his fight. And I feel like he was doing what he could do to try and rough up Usyk. The referee didn't, make any sort of gestures or acknowledgements on some of the issues that were taking place. Funny enough, Fury acknowledged them before the ref, because a few times when he did foul Usyk, he would come in with the glove. All right, it was a mistake, etc., etc. When we get to this moment now in the ninth round, I understand obviously it's not technically a standing 8 count, it's a knockdown, the ropes held him up. I understand all of that. And to the letter of the law, you can say that Nelson did the right thing, but I think that he handled that whole situation poorly, in my opinion. I guess like everyone else, he, maybe took into account Fury's history and his track record with being able to, survive a crisis. But ultimately, I think there was something like 25 seconds. It was at least 19. We'll say at least 19 seconds from the moment when that first punch landed, which basically took Fury's legs away, to the moment where he's eventually finally stumbled into the ring ropes. He's got no legs. His arms are down by his side primarily. He's taken about 7 clean power punches. He's also then taken about 4 grazing, partially hit shots. Arms are down by his side. His head's rocking all over the place. He has no balance. There, at that moment, you say, well, he's not in a position to defend himself. It's not a case of if he's gone down and he gets up and he's wobbly when he gets up, but you say, okay, I know what this guy is. Like, he's literally taken unanswered shots for 20 seconds near enough before he falls into the ropes. And then the moment when he does fall in, bear in mind, is at that moment, Usyk's there going for the kill. Realistically, I think the referee, knowing what this means, and the fact that he didn't necessarily step in firmly, it was more Usyk's honor, if you want to say that, as to why he chose not to actually take that last final shot, which he would have had every right to do. That is where I think the tire turned, because he obviously steps in. It looked like he was ready to do the almost wave it off until he hears the count, turns around, turns back. Okay, let me give the count, see what happens there. When he asks Fury to come forward, he doesn't ask Fury, show me, lift up your gloves. He doesn't say, come to me, lift your gloves. He just literally wipes the glove straight away. Are you okay? He doesn't ask him to defend himself. Fury even rocks back in that moment. Legs are still gone. Normally, that is a sign that you're no longer fit to continue. Whether or not he knew how close to the end of the round it was, probably that maybe did factor in. But ultimately, I personally would have said that fight should have been stopped there, just due to the amount of unarmed punches. You've seen people get stopped on the ropes, like almost more lucid than that, defending shots, getting lots of shots hit on the gloves. And his arms are down by his side, just taking shots left, right, and center, and he's got no equilibrium. But yeah, what happened. He came back in the next round, back to sort of a good standing form. Usyk tried to sort of get him right at the start, but then he quickly realized, all right, he seems to be back now. He's really got those insane powers of recovery. That's one thing that I will never take away from Tyson Fury. He's almost got that Wolverine superhuman, that mutant gene when it comes to recovering from a crisis, because his legs came back almost immediately. So that's one thing I respect him on. But yeah, Usyk just beat him up round 10. Beat him up round 11, although again Fury sort of tried to build back into it. Round 12, Fury had a couple of decent stanzas, one or two moments in that round, but again it was just consistently Usyk applying that pressure, throwing shots and throwing the cleaner shots. So everything Fury was throwing was very touch, a couple bits here and there, but by that time he had no power, he had no real stamina. And then last thing I want to say, just with regards to that, again, shout out to everyone on the panel, just with regards to everyone say, he's got to fight that big dirty, lean on him, drain him down. I told people the leaning thing would not work with Usyk. And if you see the way that he positioned his body for most of the time, whether he would tuck his arms directly into his rib cage so Fury couldn't try to underhook him, or he would push his shoulder against him and, you know, have a firmer base of gravity, being able to actually push him off, or he'd be able to slip underneath the arms, just because he knew how to deal with all of that. You know, Fury obviously didn't know about his, you know, the martial arts background, that big Soviet Sambo background that he has, the way that he's able to control that space in the center, to the point where Fury on several occasions almost felt like he felt defeated that he couldn't clinch him the way he was able to clinch Wilder, or the way he was able to clinch Derek Chisora at times, or even Dillian White, for instance. So yeah, just everything that Fury did, Usyk had an answer for. And I think the one takeaway that you kind of have from this whole situation is Usyk really is him, because when you check it and you look at, he makes tiny micro adjustments in the way he fights different people, but he uses and employs the exact same style each time, and no one is able to deal with it because that's the effective method. Some people have to change the way you fight people. He literally fights everyone the exact same way, and just no one is good enough to compete. Everyone's like, oh, well, he's a big guy, you should just walk him down and batter him. No one's been able to do that yet. There's clearly a reason for that. And every punch that he threw had mean intent. And as I said, he was holding his feet a lot more. So when people feel like, oh, he doesn't really hit that hard, but you realize before he's always on his toes, this time he's digging those shots in. You know that those shots hurt. And no one has done to Fury in that ninth what Usyk did.
I hear you, brother. Hey, shout out to Jim Jones with the super chat. Usyk is the GOAT convo. You the man, Beeb. Well, there you go. Thanks for the super chat. Just want to give my thoughts really quick on this fight, guys. First of all, early on, I thought Usyk's left to the body was really good. I saw Fury took over, in my opinion, round 4. I thought the right to the body was working. He was catching him with an uppercut. I thought he hurt Usyk with an uppercut visibly. I actually thought it was about to be a wrap, but Usyk showed it was made of something else. How do we know that? Because he did it, and he asked for the cross because he wasn't like he needed a little something extra, and I think he needed to bring something out of himself that we all witnessed, obviously. And he made some proper adjustments, and he went on to win the fight. I scored it 7-5 with the knockdown in favor of Usyk. Clear win for Usyk. And one more thing I'll say about the fight is this. Not a lot of people are really mentioning this. It's a very small detail, but very early in the fight and in other parts of the fight, but especially very early, there was a moment where Fury went to the corner. I'm pretty certain it was round 1. He goes to the corner, right? He drapes his hands on the top rope, and he almost invites Usyk to come in. Go ahead, throw me your shots, right? 9 out of 10 fighters see that as an easy, okay, I'll do it. Why not? Usyk backed up, and he said no. And I think there was a power dynamic there, and I think the message was, you're not the puppet master. You're not going to tell me what to do. I didn't put you against this corner. You put yourself there. You want me to do this. I'll see you again when I put you against corner. And that's basically the story of the fight for me. All right. With that said, let's talk about the rematch here, guys. More than likely it's going to happen. Do you want to see it? That's number one. Do you want to see it? And if not, if it doesn't happen, what's a better alternative for you? To start with Gail.
I am not sure it's going to happen. There is a rematch clause. We don't know exactly what's in the legal paperwork for either of these guys. They both made life-changing money, and they weren't exactly hurting, particularly Fury, before this fight. Fury made well north of $100 million. Usyk made north of $40 million. They don't need to fight for any reason other than legacy, pride. In Usyk's case, he is fighting for an entire country. But I wouldn't be shocked if Usyk decides, you know what, I'm walking away undefeated. I'm done. I've made more than enough money. I have my family. I can go back and serve my country in another way. He hasn't been pounded in the head. There's no shame in him doing that if he decides to do that. Fury is probably ego-driven enough that he's going to want revenge. So I think that he wants it more than I think Usyk would want it. But Usyk is the one in the driver's seat. He's the A side now. I am the captain now. So I think a rematch is more likely than not, but I think it is far from assured. If it doesn't happen, Fury has some options. I think people would still be interested in seeing Fury and Joshua fight.
Okay.
I think he could also take on whoever the winner of the IBF title is, which would be easy pickings for him and it would get him a belt. Those are the kind of options that would be available on Fury's side. Usyk is in the position of nothing to prove. So again, what does he fight for? Is there any sense of obligation because of the rematch clause? How tightly binding is that? We will all see. They both got some healing time ahead of them. I'm sure we'll hear from their camps. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear something midsummer, or perhaps if they aren't going to hold to the October date, it wouldn't surprise me if we get an announcement when the Saudis hold a card here in the United States on August 3rd.
Sounds good. Gail, I'm sorry, Beeb.
Whoa.
Thank you, Gail and Beeb. Obviously, we know you want to see the rematch. The question to you is, do you think it's going to happen in October? Is that too soon? I know I heard about Usyk's jaw. And if it doesn't happen for whatever reason, is there any alternative you would rather see?
I think it'll happen in December. And I think Tyson Fury, after the fight, immediately after the fight, I heard George Groves mention that he heard Fury say to Turki Al-Sheikh, get me that rematch. Let's get that money up, or something to the effect of that. So, but that was before the decision was announced. But I do think, I agree with Gail. I do think Fury will want that rematch. I think, he probably sees things that he could have done better. But for Usyk, there really isn't nothing left to do. I mean, this was the top of the mountain for him. But I do think that the money is going to be just so great for this rematch that I think neither man will probably pass it up. And I think they do need to heal. I think October is too soon. And like I said, I do believe it'll probably happen in December. And if it doesn't happen, the Joshua fight is still there for Fury. Joshua will probably have a fight with the winner of Dubois and Hrgovic, and he'll be could be the IBF title holder at that time if he's able to beat the winner. And then you have Fury versus Joshua for the IBF title. But I do think the rematch happens, and I am looking forward to it. And like I said earlier in the show, this is one of the rare times where I really, really do want to see a rematch.
Calix, let me ask you this. Obviously, I think most are going to say, yes, I want to see the rematch, right? Do you think anything different happens in the rematch?
Yes, I think it'd be one-sided for Usyk. And I want to see Fury versus Joshua. That's what I'd rather see. And if Usyk wants to fight the winner of that, then if those guys want to try to earn that, that's fine. But Fury did earn the rematch, and Usyk's team said this morning that they'd honor it. We're honorable. We'll honor it. I think if the rematch doesn't happen, it would come from the Fury side. That's what I believe. I do think we'll see it at some point, and I think it'll be more one-sided. And I actually believe it's not going to be as entertaining because remember when Roy Jones was knocked out by Antonio Tarver, and the third fight was a stinker of a fight. Why? Because Roy was so gun-shy. He was so gun-shy in that third fight. He had some moments like second or third round, and then it just became a one-sided fight because Roy was afraid to throw punches. I think that Usyk has sized Fury up, and it would be a one-sided fight in a rematch, and it would be really a letdown for a lot of people. But I'm here for it. I'm fine with it. I still want to see Fury versus Joshua though. I think AJ wins that fight. I've always felt like that, and I still want to see that fight. It's still a great fight.
So, shout out to Fight Doctor who thinks Fury should have won. He thinks Usyk got a decision. I'm sorry, a gift, but he's calling people clueless. Shout out to him. Hey, Denny, if you were given a choice later in the year, AJ versus Fury and Wembley, or this rematch anywhere in the world, right? Which one would you rather pick?
AJ versus Fury, I'd rather see. But it seems like AJ's going to fight the winner of Hrgovic Dubois in Wembley. I don't see the Fury-Usyk one happening on October. Probably more likely due to Fury. He'll need to push it back. He probably will want to push it back. That's if he even activates the rematch, because we thought that Errol was going to activate the rematch versus Terence, and that didn't come to any fruition in the end. So then Usyk, really, what does he have to prove? A good fight I would like to see versus Usyk, stylistically wise, is someone like Ajit Kabayel getting his mandatory WBC shot, because his style looks very good. Like the work rate, the body shots, the variation of attacks. That would be a good fight for Usyk. But yeah, I'd like to see AJ versus Fury. I would like to see AJ versus Wilder, if Wilder's able to look good against Zhang. So there's some pretty good fights out there for both AJ and Fury still. I do want to see, I would like to see the rematch, but with Usyk and Fury, but it probably would be less entertaining, I imagine, because as Khalid said, he'll probably be a bit more gun shy, because he knows now the middleweight can hurt him. He can be timed, he can be outworked, he can be outboxed. The holding methods he did, the Sambo wrestling came into effect, where he was able to break open the guard and get the underhooks and overhooks and stuff like that to stop those things happening. Because Fury did everything in that fight. He did the boxing, he did the long arm stuff, he did the leaning on, he tried every tactic, and it was to no avail, unfortunately. So yeah, I would like to see the AJ Fury one, because that would be a massive fight in Britain. That will always be a massive fight in Britain, and I think that does Wembley Stadium easy with big pay-per-views, because they're both big household names over here. And yeah, I think that would be a better fight, in my personal opinion.
All right, Base, talk to us. Rematch. Do you think Fury will take it?
Actually, I don't. If I'm real, I'm indifferent to whether it happens or not. I would, if it happens, I'll be happy to pay for it again. Even though, again, I agree with other people. I don't think it will be as competitive or as dramatic. I just don't think Fury can make any of the necessary adjustments that he would need to at this late stage in his life and career. He is what he is at this moment. I would probably prefer for Fury and Joshua, and then the winner maybe gets Usyk, if Usyk could agree to that deal. But I know that as I think Gail, Joe, and Khalid said, at the end of the day, if this rematch doesn't happen, it won't be on Usyk's side, because he's shown himself to be a man of honor. He said he'll give him the rematch, as he always has. He always makes sure that people don't doubt his work. There's no room for error. It's always clean. So yeah, in that sense, I'm more than happy if it happens. If it doesn't, fine. I did say yesterday, though, just from a bit of a karmic point of view, that it would be funny if Fury said, all right, I want to do the rematch, and then Usyk decides to retire, a la what Fury did to Klitschko. Poetic justice would be served. And while that would take Usyk a tiny bit down in my estimation, because again, a Capricorn like myself, we are men of our words, we do honor it when it comes down to it, but that would be funny, and I would laugh at it, even though it would take him down a little bit in the estimation. But yeah, rematch happens, I think same thing. If it doesn't happen, I think he should retire. I think he should retire undefeated. He's clocked the game from the amateurs to the pro. But yeah, if you got to put in that one last fight, go for it.
I don't know. My cousin's a Capricorn. He's the biggest liar I know. I don't know about this.
He might be a
weed ever-
December. He might be on the cusp of Aquarius. Is he 21st? I bet he's the 21st, isn't it? Yeah.
But
I'm a Leo, by the way, like Tyson Fury.
oh, there you go. Oh wow.
Oh no, another Leo in the house. Ah!
All right. So instead of talking about people that believe in stuff that isn't real, but anyway, I don't believe in all that stuff myself. I'm a Pisces, but I don't believe in it. You know what I mean? Hey, Lyndon, rematch here. What do you think Fury could do better in a rematch? Or do you think it could be more disastrous? How do you think a rematch will play out here? And do you want to see it?
Definitely want to see it, of course. Look, there's so many other big fights out there. I wouldn't blame Usyk for going off into the sunset. He's beaten Joshua twice. Now he's beaten Fury. He really hasn't got anything more to prove. The only thing I could probably see is obviously the money. I think I'm not exactly sure the split. I'm sure you guys can let me know. I'm sure he'll get a better portion of the payday next time. But again, is money the be all and end all to Alexander Usyk? I don't think it is. I think he has a lot more values in his life than just money. And even if it was, he's got plenty to go around now. So I think the rematch will happen because I think obviously Joshua now will fight is it the Hrgovic and Dubois winner, and I will say too the IBF absolute dick move by stripping Usyk. I'm not sure we've mentioned that 2 weeks after the first undisputed heavyweight champion, and they strip it. It's just a dick move. But anyway, I'm sure the chat out there will have their say about that. But I think the fight will happen because of that. I think Fury can do better. It's whether he can make the necessary adjustments, and that's the question. I think he had enough success in this fight. He hurt Usyk a few times. I think if he just sticks to his game plan longer, he can win this fight. Of course, Usyk makes the adjustments as well, which makes him such a great fighter. But yes, I think Tyson Fury can win it, but I just have a feeling that Usyk might do the double with Fury as well and have the 2 fights over Fury and Joshua, which is a massive achievement. So I'm with, I think Joe said, I don't think it happens in October. It might be a month or 2 later. But I think it does happen, especially with Anthony Joshua tied up with the other stuff with the IBF. So, can't wait to see it if it does happen. But for me, I think Usyk does the job again in maybe not as dramatic fashion as this time.
And I'll say this, it's just my opinion. If I'm Turki Al-Ashi, I say this. Usyk are definitely going to get the fight. But how about we do Fury versus AJ? The winner gets Usyk. So Usyk could still get whoever, whether it's a trilogy with AJ or rematch with Fury, he gets a big payday. So Usyk's not losing out on anything, and at the same time, there's like a purpose for that fight. Like Fury versus AJ would have a purpose. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Gail doesn't like it. Like you don't like my.
Why in the world would Usyk need to get in the ring again with Joshua?
That's a good point. That is a good point, though, right there.
No,
I'll tell you why. Because I don't know exactly what you mean, but Joshua did much better in the rematch in the first fight.
Yeah, he did. And that's exactly why Usyk does not need to get back in the ring with him. He is now undisputed, unified, and undefeated. He needs to think very carefully now about the legacy, and he needs to think about whether he wants to fight in his late 30s, 40-ish. It's going to be a while before a fight like that takes place. He's got to think long and hard about that. I don't see it.
We got to see AJ versus Fury at some point, though.
We do got to see it, and I think
that's the fight we need, and that's the fight that'll fill Wembley Stadium. Yes. If Turkey sees fit to fund it there, he'll be a national hero, bringing that card to England, and that'd go a long way for him.
Yeah, but there's so much money to be made over there. They don't even need Turkey for that fight.
No, you don't need Turkey. Eddie and Frank can do that themselves and just split it.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I would actually prefer that. Then again, Frank knows somebody else is going to bankroll it. He's not stupid. He'll let him do it.
But if Turkey wants to come in and help with it, I'm good with it either way. But it is what it is. It's gonna really quick. Don't want to spend a lot of time with it. But Emanuel Navarette, we touched on him earlier. But Denys Berinchyk, he called out a bunch of guys. Navarette, Berinchyk. What should happen next for each one of these guys? Lyndon, what do you think?
Look, I think we would see an all-Ukrainian lightweight title fight with Berinchyk and Lomachenko. I doubt it. I think Lomachenko would probably want to fight the Davises or maybe Shakur Stevenson, one of those guys. But, I think there's plenty of options for Berinchyk. I think he'll get the fights that Lomachenko and Davis probably don't want for now. Navarette, look, it was a shocking performance. Let's not sugarcoat it. But look, he's been a very good fighter over the years. I think there's still plenty of options for him. I think a fight with Navarette and our man George Kambosos makes a lot of sense. But, both coming off disappointing losses. Who knows, maybe the winner gets another crack at one of the titles and the loser goes off into the sunset. But for me, I think that fight makes a lot of sense. But, still some good fights to be made at lightweight anyway for both these guys.
All right. What do you think should happen when Navarette next base and Berinchyk here?
I wouldn't be surprised if Tank Davis decides that he wants to do a unification against Berinchyk, obviously being 36, not being as quick as the other guys, being more willing to engage. I could see him potentially saying, all right, well, finally, I'll do a unification and people can stop saying, oh, well, I've never unified a belt. So I think that could be in Berincyk's future if he's prepared to take it, which I think he did say his name. In terms of Navarette, to be honest, I think he just needs a nutritionist and go back to 130 because any advantages that he used to have from 122, 126, they disappeared when he went to 130. They're not there now. And yes, it will be in a lot of fun, spirited fights, but he's not going to win the vast majority of them, especially at that elite level with his lack of technical prowess. So that's what I think he should do. But I think Berinchyk, if he can get a unification on that side, he will do. He won't get it against Lomachenko. They won't fight each other, and they won't feed Shakur. They won't feed him to Shakur either. So that's how I kind of see that one playing out.
Okay, a little bit of that, like Canelo, like I don't want to fight another Mexican type of thing, something like that. You know what I mean? Are they going to get criticized the same way? I'm just putting that out there. But
they was on the same Olympic team, innit? So on several cycles, so they got that proper bond. Yeah,
makes sense. Gail, what say you?
I believe I'm going to be proven right by saying Berinchyk is going to be fed to Shakur Stevenson in a one-fight deal for Top Rank because after his fight coming up here in Newark, his contract is done. He's still got to figure out what to do. So Top Rank will probably dangle a deal in front of him and say, listen, you can handle Berinchyk. And I think he could. I think it would probably not be the most fun fight in the world, but I think that would be easy. He picks up a belt and then he can decide, and Top Rank can decide whether they want to continue on with him. Shakur is on pretty thin ice with Top Rank. And I think a lot of other promoters are going to look very carefully at whether they really want to pick him up. For as skilled as he is, he's not a money maker and he doesn't draw eyeballs. He doesn't, not at this point. He's not really looked great in his last few fights. So I think that we're going to see Stevenson, Berinchyk, and assuming Stevenson wins his next fight. Absolutely no way will Berinchyk fight Loma unless they are the last two men standing.
Okay. Unless it's for all the marbles, maybe. Danny, talk to us. What's going to happen with Berinchyk? What would you like to see next? And Navarette, do you think he's done? Should he move back down to 130? What should happen with him?
Well, Berinchyk, he called out Shakur Stevenson, so it seems like that's what he's gunning for. I highly doubt he's going to fight Lomachenko because right now the Ukrainians, they're having an Indian summer right now, so they look like they're on this team spirit type of game thing. So it will more likely be Berinchyk for Stevenson and then Loma. I'm not sure, but then with Navarette, he probably does need to go. How old is he now, by the way?
Who
29.
Oh, 29. Yeah, he
Navarrete?
probably. Yeah, Navarrete. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he just needs to go back down to 130 because that just exposed him there that this isn't the weight for him really. So yeah, that's what I think.
Okay. What would you like to see for each guy, Joe?
I agree 100% with Gail. I do think Berinchyks going to be fighting Stevenson next. If I think Stevenson's going to win his next fight, and I don't know if Navarrete can make 130. I mean, I believe he still holds the title there, but maybe he'll stay at 135 and they'll give him another fight against someone like an Oscar Duarte or something. I don't know. Be interesting. It'd be interesting to see if he goes back down.
Shit. Okay. Yeah, he's lucky Pitbull's gone. I'll say that. Hey, hey, Calix.
Whoa.
Let me just ask you this. Let me ask you this. And
Love Pitbull.
I know you, like you don't care. You wanted the Klitschko brothers to fight each other. So you're probably thinking, Berinchyk and Loma should fight each other. You don't care they were in the Olympic team together. You don't have a heart. You wanted to beat each other up, right? Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah. I don't have a problem with it. They should.
Unbelievable.
If the unification is there, they should. Look, as far as Navarrete, or as I call him, Navarette.
He's Navarette again. He lost.
Yeah, he's Navarette again. He's Manny Navarette again. Look, if he's gonna stay at 135, they need to abandon. Top Rank needs to abandon mission titles and go to mission action star. And the fight that I love, a guy who's crept into the top 10 at Ring Magazine at 135 and hasn't had a 12 rounder yet, is Opetaia. So Navarrete versus Opetaia, I love that fight. So make that one. And if he's going to stay at 135, and he, as Gail said, he doesn't want to hire a nutritionist to get down to 130. So he becomes almost a man without a weight class, much like Arturo Gatti. Couldn't make 140 anymore and couldn't compete at the top level at 147. So I think that's where he's at if he's going to stay at 135. So make that fight. I would love that fight. And then William, you can still do a cross promotion Williams Opeta fight next year too. So just make this guy an action star at 135. Just do that. And as far as Berinchyk, I don't know where they're going to go with that, to be honest. I don't know.
All right. Hey guys, it's been a great show. I appreciate everyone who tuned in. That's the Roundtable. This is D-Style Boxing. For the rest of the panel, keep it boxing. See you next week on my channel. Peace.